Hello.
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 Hi there.
Hello and welcome to the RadioTimes.com podcast. My name's Tim Glanfield. Today I am very pleased to be joined by...
Hugh Fullerton.
That's good, we're getting the hang of this.
Flora Carr.
And Ben Allen.
And that's everyone who's here in the room. And today, Hugh, and I'm looking at you, Hugh, because this is a big sci-fi one, and you're the sci-fi editor. We're talking about Avengers Endgame, which I believe comes out on the 26th of... 25th of April.
Yeah, 26th in the States, though. So that is...
so I was right.
You were basically right. And
I was
much of a
actually
muchness.
right. A lot of our listeners are in the United States, and you're very welcome. 26th for you, 25th for the UK. It was originally going to be later?
It was going to be later in the US, but it was going to be in the UK a week earlier, which would have been great. But they have decided that's a bad idea, considering the internet exists. So now it's all on at the same time. Basically.
Internet's going to ruin it again, hasn't it? And it's going to be a short film, I hear.
Yeah. A mere skip through the daisies of about 3 hours and 58 seconds.
Is that all?
181 minutes, which I like as a nice round number. Longest Marvel film ever.
How long was Infinity War?
Oh, don't ask me that. Don't ask me.
2 hours and
Don't ask
23.
things. Oh, there we go.
Really?
Oh, nice.
Only a lot
shorter.
Yeah, a mere. Very sprightly.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. So we know it's long, and we know when it's out in both the UK and America. So, Hugh, why don't you tell us why is this a big deal? Why should people care?
Well, there's a few reasons. It's kind of been building up to this film, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, since 2008. It's been over 10 years, and obviously Infinity War was kind of the first of that. It was bringing together all of Marvel's heroes for the first time in the same film, well, more or less more of them. And the whole thing of comics has been the idea that your favorite heroes could cross over and team up and fight with each other and fight with each other's enemies. And the big shared universe in the comics is something that Marvel have really tried to adapt to screen, which is their big gambit, right? That's something that there've been superhero films before, but no one's really tried to adapt that playground of superheroes before. And Infinity War was the kind of purest expression of that. All these heroes fighting alongside each other, you know, pairing up with people you wouldn't necessarily expect. Kind of massive multi-character Marvel team up. And then this film's looking to be a little bit different because the end of Infinity War, obviously, we should say we're going to be dealing with spoilers from every film up till Avengers Endgame. And if you're listening to this, then you probably have seen Infinity War. Otherwise, you're a very strange, very self-defeating sort of person. The end of
But you're very welcome.
You're very welcome all the same. The end of Infinity War saw a lot of the characters turned to dust. And so a big part of this film is working out what's going to happen and resolving that massive cliffhanger, which, I mean, Ben, you said before that was also kind of a canny move on their part, right?
Yeah, just to strip it down back to, because I think you were saying as we were going into Infinity War, it felt like it was such a massive challenge and it was, to be honest, such an incredible achievement that they managed to take all these different movies, all these different like characters, and keep a sense of like personality to each of them and blend it all into the one movie in Infinity War. So by stripping back, we've pretty much kind of gone back to just the original Avengers, and
plus
then
about extra people
and a couple of extras in there are kind of fun and slightly odd extras. Like we got Rocket and Nebula from Guardians of the Galaxy. The posters revealed we're probably going to see Tessa Thompson's character Valkyrie from Thor Ragnarok. We've got someone from Black Panther, Okoye from Black Panther as well. So I think by having a slightly smaller cast this time around, you think things should be a bit more compact, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Hard to say.
It's definitely going to be a thing.
Let's hope so. 3-hour thing.
A 3-hour thing, yeah. I mean, clearly they're still going to have to fit those characters in all sorts of different situations. We don't know much about it because it's been so secretive. If anything, even more secretive than Infinity War, which is crazy. The trailers haven't given too much away, but people have all sorts of theories and ideas, which I think kind of brings us to the next section.
Well, what do you think will happen, guys? You're the
Flora.
experts here. Flora, what do you think is going to happen? Come on, tell us what's going to happen.
What's not going to happen?
I
think
we can do it in that order.
It's a separate podcast.
I mean, I did like a big deep dive into theories prior to this podcast, and there's this idea that actually the characters who all were dusted at the end of the last film aren't actually dusted and are actually in an alternate universe.
Is that the Soul Stone thing?
What Soul Stone?
There's a thing in the comics where the Soul Stone absorbs people into a separate dimension.
Yes, that was it. A kind of Into the Spider-Verse scenario and then there's this idea that Paul Rudd's character, Ant-Man, who has been in the quantum realm kind of floating about.
Since the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp, which was his last film.
Yeah. He will come back and reveal to the other Avengers how to get into the other alternate universe and try and save the dusted characters.
And is that what we think the white suits from the trailer are?
Yes.
'Cause they're all,
they're
all geared up for something.
Quantum suits.
Some sort of, strange travel thing. Because another theory is, you said quantum there, we mentioned the quantum realm. Another big theory is there's going to be time travel this time. There's also, partly because I think people saw them filming something that looked a little bit like the original Avengers film.
The Battle of New York.
Yeah.
And there's also the idea that there'll be a jump forward in time to see Tony Stark's child with Pepper,
which was slightly teased in Infinity War. They talk about baby names,
and doesn't she say at some point like you're going to be a ... and then he cuts her off.
Oh, does he? I may have missed that. Your deep diving has taken you to all sorts of metaphorical trivia depths.
Well, because Catherine Langsford has been cast in this film, and there are pictures of her with red hair, and there's this idea that she could be Tony Stark's daughter, with Pepper's red hair.
Well, I like it.
We like this theory.
You've gone deep.
We like this theory. You got one, Ben?
I don't, but the one thing
Good, but I'm going to talk anyway.
The one thing that I noticed in the trailer is there's definitely a bit where what looked like, in at least the most recent trailer, what looked like just traditionally a group of Avengers going to take on Thanos, which is kind of more in the line with what was going on in Infinity War and a bit off-piste of the idea that they're going to be time traveling and stuff.
Well, definitely we've seen some footage released officially, which is some of the remaining Avengers kind of hanging out in HQ, chatting to Captain Marvel, who we should also say is one of the new additions to this film, Brie Larson's character. And they sort of say, let's go and get Thanos. And they're like, well, that's not that easy. But then they're like, well, we've got to try.
Yeah.
But do they say, let's go get Thanos? I think they just say...
I think they do. They say, like, let's go and get him. And they say, well, we're going to be short-handed. Just take the Infinity Stones and bring everyone back. I
don't think that Thanos is going to last that long in the film. I think it would be silly of Marvel to do a kind of Infinity War take two.
Yeah.
I think he's going to die like pretty early on, like within the first like hour potentially, and then after that it's going to be trying to work out how to get the dusted characters back.
I completely agree with you. I can definitely see that, because Thanos is the main character of Infinity War.
Yeah.
And like that's what they've always said. And if you just look at screen time, he has by far the most. Like I think Gamora's just after him. So I think the sequel is going to try and do something different. And the fact that they've sort of released clips of them heading off to try and take on Thanos or whatever suggests to me that that is something that could happen. And then he's gone, and then it's like, now what?
Yeah.
And then maybe that's when this time jump idea that you mentioned could come in. We sort of cut to black a few years later, and then maybe that's when Ant-Man suddenly arrives and he enters into this world where people have been missing, kind of like the leftovers, and then they come up with this plan to try and bring everyone back as well. And there's another theory I've heard which is quite interesting, because you were sort of regaling me with this earlier, but in the comics Thanos has this relationship with Death.
Yes,
so,
the sexy female personification of Death.
Exactly.
Which could also be who Catherine Langsford is playing.
Exactly. There's this thing in the comics where
it's either Tony Stark's daughter or Death.
It's the new either or, like cake or death. Basically, the idea is that in the comics that Thanos doesn't kill loads of people because of any sort of moral imperative. It's just because he wants to impress Death, and he's like, you know what, chicks dig
that old chestnut.
Lots of killing people, and so basically, this would be a version of that. People were quite sad in a way, a lot of fans anyway, that they didn't really incorporate that side of the character because it's a bit weird, it's a bit unique. And in the very first Avengers film, right at the end of the post-credits, there's this bit where someone says, don't fight the Avengers, anyone doing that is going to court Death. And then Thanos kind of smiles, and people, that was a bit of a pun, because Thanos kind of fancied Death. But anyway, but they seem to cut it out, but maybe they haven't, and maybe Thanos dies and meets a female embodiment of Death, which is kind of a nod to it. We could also take a kind of very brief look at what happens in the comics, the Infinity Gauntlet, which I haven't read for a while, but basically the end point of that is Thanos basically tries to attack and kill God with the Infinity Gauntlet and succeeds, takes his place. But then in the course of that, Nebula kind of steals the Infinity Gauntlet from him and can't control it, and then she's eventually defeated. And obviously Nebula is in this film, and Karen Gillan's very popular, and they've kept bringing her character back. could be that they'd at least pay some tribute to that. I don't know.
Interesting.
I was saying earlier in the trailer so far, all the footage of her seems to be very sympathetic, like
her holding hands with the rocket.
Holding hands with
I love
Rocket.
that.
She sort of pats Tony Stark on the shoulder.
and then chatting to Tony Stark, and it could be that they're making her very sympathetic in a lead up to tragic death.
Definitely.
Oh, okay, interesting. Or misleading. Maybe there's just a red herring. It's like, oh, well, actually, she's very
Maybe.
bold and she's going to take the gauntlet.
We should say that it seems likely that the Avengers will manage to bring everyone back because quite a few of them have films coming out.
Yeah.
Spider-Man and Nick Fury are going to be in the next Spider-Man film. There's going to be another Guardians film. But will there be a shocking death in this film?
Yes. Will Captain America die?
That's the big one. I mean, that's the question everyone's been asking.
Will the kids be okay with it? Will they be able to...
What's the answer?
It depends, I think, on whether it's the alternate universe theory or the time travel theory, because if it's the latter, then the Soul Stone needs a sacrifice.
That's a good point.
And
Thanos had to give up Gamora in
Yeah.
Infinity War to get his hands on it.
And then I feel like Captain America's big on self-sacrifice. I feel like he's the most likely candidate.
Don't you have to sacrifice something you love, though?
Oh,
Isn't that the
yes.
idea? So maybe
who loves him?
Well, then,
Who doesn't?
Maybe Iron Man loves him. Maybe this all is just a big ruse.
It's all a big misunderstanding.
misunderstanding, and then he'll sacrifice Captain America.
Yeah.
Although Tony Stark doesn't seem like the kind of person who would give Captain America that kind of...
No, maybe he'd be like,
grandiosity.
I wanna go. Because the thing is, both of them, both Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans, who play those characters, have sort of intimated that they're keen on going. They've sort of said, this is kind of the end for me. Chris Evans especially has hinted a lot that he wants to leave.
Is that just a red herring?
I mean, would they let him if he was going to leave?
Would they let him like tweet away saying that this is my final film, essentially?
He wants to do indie movies and
He wants
shows
to
for
direct.
Apple TV.
Yeah.
Does he?
Yeah, I think so.
He does, yeah, I think he does.
Good for him.
To each their own. But yeah, so it seems slightly, and it would kind of, I feel like either of them dying would kind of bring the whole thing full circle. Because Iron Man was obviously the first Marvel movie, and, but equally, Captain America wasn't in Infinity War very much, which is interesting. Like, he's in it, but he doesn't really have much of a story. So a lot of people think that maybe that was because this film is the big Captain America story, the big farewell.
Oh boy.
So I don't know, it could be pretty emotional.
Regarding the full circle, I have a theory.
Go on.
I think Loki is still alive.
Very possible.
And that because he was the villain in the first Avengers film, he will be the one to save everyone in some shape or form in Endgame.
I really like that idea. I think that's fun.
Interesting.
Because I read somewhere online that he stabbed Thanos, let me get this right, with his left hand, which means he could potentially be a projection.
Because is he right-handed?
Yes.
Ah.
Yeah, I checked.
Good.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good research
And
for it.
so he, when he's being sort of naughty or when he's a projection, he uses his left hand.
What, in other films?
Yeah.
Flora, you've been deep diving away.
So.
This is great.
We'll
Well,
see.
there is also a slight spoiler that Tom Hiddleston is doing a Loki TV series for Disney Plus, which, unless it's a prequel, suggests that he might be coming back anyway.
The synopsis is that he's going to be like traveling through time, being mischievous.
Right.
So it could be beforehand. Yeah,
But they're probably keeping the options open to a certain amount.
no, yeah, for sure.
That kind of does bring us on quite nicely to the next section.
Well, before we get to the next section,
Didn't bring us me as nice as I thought.
you guys fancy yourselves as Avengers fans.
Certainly.
Well, I've been reading a lot of the Beano recently,
Okay.
and the Beano have a quiz.
Excellent.
So, before we play the quiz, you're going to have a buzzer noise. So
Okay.
tell me what your buzzer noise is, Hugh.
Ding dong.
Nice. I don't know if you can get that out quickly, but fine.
Or just ding.
Well, no, too late. Just ding dong. Flora, a buzzer
Nino.
noise. Nino.
Bong.
Okay, right. Let's play the Beano's
Ours are quite similar.
Avengers quiz. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Question 1. In the comic book series, who were the original Avengers?
Nino.
Flora.
Iron Man. Captain America. Oh no! Already?
Sorry, I think you were second.
You just
Hugh,
banged in,
it's,
didn't you? You didn't know.
Iron Man, Thor, Giant Man, the Wasp, and Hulk. No, but they're starting to
No
stop
Giant
Hulk.
Man that I can see.
Oh,
here.
he's Ant-Man, but he was Giant Man at the time.
Okay, fine. All right.
Is that everyone?
Give you that.
Are
Ant-Man,
you questioning the
the
quiz?
Hulk, Iron Man, Thor, and the Wasp. Correct.
They were, just to be a real technical guy, they were brought together to contain the Hulk, and then the Hulk joined them.
The Beano will be the final arbiter on this.
I think
Okay,
as
question
Robbie
2.
should
If you can keep,
As in all matters.
please keep your own scores.
Okay.
Because I can't be bothered.
Alright.
Okay, so one point to Hugh.
Come on.
Okay, question 2. In the 2012 movie, The Avengers features Captain America. What is his real name?
Bing bong.
Oh, damn it.
Steve Rogers.
No.
Correct.
Damn it.
Well, he's the sci-fi editor. You'd expect him to get those
I
ones.
have
but come
nothing
on.
else going on in my life.
Okay. Who is the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Nino.
bong.
Iron Man.
Incorrect.
Wait, no, Nick Fury. Nick Fury.
Oh, no
Nick
takesies.
Fury. Nick Fury.
No takesies, backsies.
I thought it was
Second.
I'm
like
afraid
the
that's
Shield's
null and
team.
void. No one gets
Like-
a point there. That was
Well,
just a
you've ruined it
mess.
for everyone, Flora. Hope you're happy.
Spot it there. Okay, question 4. Which superhero does Bruce Banner transform into?
Bang.
Nino.
That's Ben.
The Hulk.
Correct. That's a point there. Question 5. Still from the Beano. Who is Loki's adoptive brother?
Bang.
Nino.
Bang. Thor.
That's Ben. Thor. Correct.
Yes.
Well done. Starting to get some pace now.
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
this. What's the name of the mysterious blue glowing cube?
Bing bong. The Tesseract.
Correct.
Nice.
Me
Okay.
that as
That was
well.
very
2-all.
good.
This is.
That was 3 for me now.
Well interrupted, as they
Thor's
say
got
in the
nuts.
industry. Which US city do Avengers battle?
Bang.
Nino.
New York.
Correct.
You only knew
well
that because I said
interrupted.
it
Well interrupted. And question 8 now. Who diverts a nuclear missile into a wormhole and
Oh,
defeats...
bing bong. Iron Man.
Let's just check that with the Beano. Correct.
Man, this is fun. I'm
This
getting
is just
heated.
embarrassing now.
What weapon does Thor carry?
Bang.
Nino.
Come on. Yeah,
A hammer.
correct. Even I knew that one.
It's technically an axe now, but you know.
Okay. In Avengers Age of Ultron, what is the name of the villain who wants to destroy...
Nino.
I think there's a bit of a clue there, isn't there?
It's Ultron.
Correct. Listen, don't ever go at the Beano.
Ben's ahead.
I did love the beat.
How does Black Widow turn the Hulk back into Bruce Banner?
Nino.
Bang. Oh.
Flora's got it.
She says, the sun's getting real low. That's how she does it.
With a lullaby.
With-
I've
Yeah,
got here.
that's-
Yeah.
I think
That
that's
sounds
Okay,
like
okay.
a
That is
kind
We'll
of,
give everyone.
Yes, please give me one.
That's exactly what I would have said, to be fair.
who sells Ultron Vibranium?
Bang.
Nino.
Is it Loki?
No.
Okay, so that's Flora.
It's Andy Serkis's character. Like,
I'll need the name.
but I cannot remember.
Oh,
Oh, wait, no.
I'll need the name.
God, he's in Black Panther.
Na-na.
Claws.
Santa Claus.
It's Claws. Klaus.
Ulysses Claw.
Yeah.
Please, can I get a
Yes, you
point?
can have that.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Sorry, there's a question thing in the middle of the quiz here on the Beano. But, it's just a survey, I think. What is Clint Barton's super name hero?
Bing bong.
That's Hugh.
Hawkeye.
Correct.
I was going to catch up with Ben.
In Avengers Infinity War, what is the name of the villain who's on a mission to
Bang.
collect...
Nino.
That's Ben.
Thanos.
Correct.
This is annoying.
This is annoying. He's so quick.
He chose a very quick noise.
Yeah, I chose wrong.
Quite easy,
Who
so I
does
think just make the
Nino?
noise as
Yeah,
quick
yeah.
as possible, be a clue. Which other superhero team do the Avengers
Bang.
join?
The Guardians of the Galaxy.
Correct.
Ben's
well
taking a lead.
interrupted. Peter Parker appears in Avengers Infinity War.
Bing bong.
Nino.
Spider-Man.
Correct.
Say it again.
In the films, what does SHIELD stand for?
Bang. Oh God.
What?
I
There
actually
we
did
go.
hear this.
There we go.
It was read out in a podcast the other day, but I actually just can't remember.
Not
that.
on this
Strategical.
one by you.
Strategical.
Nope. I mean,
Terrestrial.
that's
Okay.
close.
Strategic.
So we'll just have a go, because I don't think any of us are going to
Yeah.
get it. Do you want to go?
Not strategic.
Strategic. I'll give you that.
Strategic.
It's an H now. Home.
Home.
Land.
Oh, I knew
All
that
right,
bit.
come on. Let's let Hugh show off.
I don't know it, but
you do.
I'm going to take
He
a
does.
guess. Strategic Homeland Intelligence.
No.
Oh, no.
Intervention.
Intervention espionage,
enforcement,
logistics directorate,
and logistics division. So nowhere near here.
Oh, well.
That's sort of there.
Yeah.
yes.
Also,
Got some of
they
the
change
words.
it quite often in the comics.
Sorry.
Do they?
I don't know what the scores are. I hope you're keeping yours.
I am keeping
We're very close to the
Yes.
end now.
Who's
I'm sure
winning?
at home you're hoping
Me,
that
obviously.
Ben's
this is
winning.
the last question. It's not quite. Which Marvel character has never appeared in the Avengers films?
Bing bong. Like, I could name any Marvel character.
According to the Beano.
According to the Beano,
What?
well, I don't know, the grasshopper hasn't.
Unfortunately, that is not the answer
That
the
is
Beano
true.
gave me.
I'm still going to give myself a
But
point.
does it
Anyone
say
else
so
want to
in the
have
Beano?
a guess?
Sorry. Death. Death doesn't appear.
Wolverine.
I've got the Wasp.
She has appeared
She
in the
has
Marvel.
appeared.
Oh, in the Avengers movies, you said.
See, listen to the question, guys.
Okay.
The Beano knows all.
Oh, there you go. Who originally created the Avengers?
Bing bong. Nick Fury.
No, I
Nino.
think it means the person who created the.
Bong.
Stan Lee.
Oh, right. I thought you meant in
Do I
universe.
get that?
Well, you
Yeah.
said bong in.
I
so-
said Nino. I said
I've
Nino.
got Stanley and Jack
Stanley.
Kirby.
Yeah.
Can I get?
I'll give
can
it
I
that
have
for
the
Stanley.
point?
I'll give you Stanley.
Fair.
Thank you.
And this
RIP.
is the last question.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And that's just a stupid question. It doesn't really make sense. A new Avengers film will be released in 2019. True or false?
Bing bong.
Bing bong.
Yay.
A point for everyone there at the end. So let's add up our scores. Let's
Okay.
be honest. What did you get, Hugh?
Okay, so in third place with an unassailable 4 points, it's Flora Carr.
Well done.
Well done, Flora. Good effort.
In second place with a heroic 7 points, it's Hugh Fullerton, which means in first place
Well done.
with an actually unassailable 8 points, it's
way.
Ben Allen.
I might cry.
So that's
I've never won anything before.
40% in a
In a way
Beano
you still
quiz.
haven't.
Well done. That's
40%,
excellent,
well, that's not
excellent stuff. That takes us on to our final section, Hugh.
It does.
I rudely interrupted with
No.
that
Forgotten
Forgotten
quiz,
what the final section was about.
which I hope you enjoyed at home, ladies and
Yeah,
gentlemen.
I mean,
But
I
now
hope you
Hugh's
played
gonna-
along. Feel free to send in your scores to @RadioTimes on Twitter. No cheating. No, for the final section, I was just going to ask, what's next for Marvel after this? Because we do know a few films that are coming up. Spider-Man Far From Home, as we said earlier, is coming up later this summer. And then there is going to be a Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, although not for quite a long time because the director, James Gunn, is making another film first. And apart from that, nothing really that official is
I
happening.
read somewhere that the Captain Marvel sequel. is
There's
being
probably going to be a Captain
cancelled
Marvel
in.
sequel. There's
Yeah.
probably going to be a Black Panther sequel.
Right.
There's probably a Black Widow spin-off. We've heard that David Harbour for Stranger Things is going to be in that with Florence Pugh from Lady Macbeth. And
Rachel
Little Drummer
Weisz.
Girl, and maybe Rachel Weisz, yes.
Maybe
Wow.
Twice, unofficially.
So might be a prequel. We don't really know that much about it, but that might be filming quite soon. There's also going to be a film about a character called Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu,
Ooh.
who was kind of a character created during the kind of obsession with Kung Fu movies back in the 70s, and he's been kind of kicking around the comics since. But they've got the director of Short Term 12 making that, Destin Daniel Cretton, who coincidentally directed Brie Larson in that film.
Oh, yes.
Very interesting.
But yeah, so that might be filming soon, or Black Widow might be filming soon. They seem to be kind of similar. And they may be making a film called The Eternals, which is about these kind of ancient alien beings, which is said to star Angelina Jolie and Kumail Nanjiani from The Big Sick and so on.
He's great. He's funny.
Yeah.
The Eternals, have they appeared elsewhere in the universe before?
In the comics, I think Thanos is technically an Eternal, but I don't know if they're keeping that. I can't work
I
out.
can never remember the difference between Eternal and then Celestial.
Yeah, they kind of. I think Eternals are kind of in the comics. They're aliens who did some stuff on Earth millennia ago and then left. But I imagine the film will take a slightly different take. But it's probably going to be more in the vibe of Guardians of the Galaxy, and as is probably Captain Marvel too. If they do that, like slightly more cosmic. That's something Kevin Feige, who's the head of Marvel, has said before, is that they're kind of going to be a bit more cosmic in this next phase, so more like spacey, wacy stuff.
Interesting.
And he's also said that Captain Marvel's going to take the lead
Yeah,
in terms of the Avengers.
Well, and this might make sense if Iron Man or Captain America or both are to leave the universe, then they'll need new leadership, and she could be a good person to take that role.
Yeah.
She did punch a spaceship in Captain Marvel at the
She
end
did,
there.
so she could handle it.
So I think she's got the power anyway.
Yeah.
She seems kind of almost undefeatable, which
Yeah.
might be an issue they're going to struggle with. But we'll see that in Endgame, I guess.
Yeah, which I'm pretty looking forward to. I mean, are there any films that you guys are looking forward to or would like to see?
Why? Full disclosure, I haven't yet seen Captain Marvel in its entirety. I know. So I'm looking forward to seeing that with Goose.
Nice, the cat, yeah.
Yeah. But this Eternal one sounds
It sounds interesting. Like,
yeah.
It sounds like they're getting a bit more experimental.
Yeah, definitely. Quite a departure from what they've done before.
I am excited to see if they do a Captain Marvel sequel. I'd like to see more of her character, and obviously we're going to get to see a bit more in Endgame. But I want to. She seemed like she had a great personality in Captain Marvel, but there was still a lot they had to cover aside from that. She also wasn't really sure who she was half the film, so I'd like to see her come out of her shell a little bit more. And then this is just completely not going to happen. But I'd like to see a rom-com with the Hulk and Black Widow. I want to see that happen.
We all
Nice.
Two of them.
I'd like them to see them do a decent Fantastic Four movie now that they've Disney have bought Fox. This is the kind of cliche thing that fans say, but
They can't do it again, can they?
well, if it's that bad, it doesn't count. That's the rule.
I'll tell you what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to Avengers Endgame
Yes.
on the 25th/26th of
I'm
April.
looking forward to this conversation ending.
And this conversation ending. No, thank you very much for listening to the RadioTimes.com podcast. We'll be back next week for more of the same. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.